One afternoon, a middle-aged man walked into the courtroom with a stiffness in his posture that didn't look like confidence. It looked like tension he was trying to hide. He kept adjusting his sleeves, glancing around the room, avoiding eye contact with almost everyone. At the plaintiff's table sat a woman in her late 20s. She didn't look angry. She didn't look nervous either. She looked controlled, too controlled. The kind of composure that usually comes after something has already gone too far. The judge took her seat and reviewed the file briefly. Then she looked up. "This is a civil claim involving financial support and personal conduct," she said. That wording alone shifted the room, because it was vague and heavy at the same time. The judge turned to the woman. "Go ahead." The woman took a breath. "He promised to help me," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something restrained. The judge nodded. "How?" "He said he would support me financially while I was in school," she continued. "Rent, expenses, everything." The judge looked at the man. "Did you make that promise?" The man hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." The admission came quickly, almost too quickly. The judge leaned back slightly. "And what was the nature of your relationship?" The room tightened. The man shifted. The woman didn't look at him. "We were involved," she said. The judge didn't react outwardly. "Define involved?" Another pause. The woman chose her words carefully. "We were not in a formal relationship," she said, "but there were expectations." That word, expectations, changed everything. The judge turned to the man. "What expectations?" He exhaled slowly. "It wasn't like that," he said. The judge's tone stayed calm. "Then explain what it was like." He hesitated. "She needed help," he said. "I offered it." The woman shook her head slightly. "You didn't just offer help," she said. "You made it conditional." The silence that followed was immediate, because now the discomfort in the room had a direction. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Conditional how?" The woman didn't rush. She didn't dramatize it. She just said it. "You said you'd only continue helping me if I stayed available to you." The room went still. Not quiet from attention, quiet from impact. The judge didn't interrupt. She let that sit. Then she turned to the man. "Is that accurate?" He didn't answer immediately, because there wasn't a clean way to respond to that. "It's being twisted," he said finally. The judge's eyes didn't move. "Untwist it." The word was simple, but it landed sharply. The man swallowed. "We had an understanding," he said. The judge tilted her head slightly. "What kind of understanding requires financial support in exchange for personal access?" No one spoke, because the question didn't need an answer. It exposed the situation on its own. The woman continued. "When I stopped seeing him, the payment stopped," she said. The judge nodded slowly. "So the support was directly tied to the relationship continuing." "Yes." The judge looked back at the man. "You don't get to structure financial agreements around personal control," she said. His posture tightened. "That's not what I was doing," he replied. The judge didn't raise her voice. "You admitted the support ended when the relationship ended." He didn't respond, because that part was already on record. The judge leaned back, her expression now more focused than skeptical. "This court is not here to regulate personal relationships," she said. A pause. "But it is here to examine financial claims." She turned to the woman. "What exactly are you asking for?" The woman held her folder tighter. "The amount he promised for the remainder of my program," she said. The judge nodded. Then she looked back at the man. "You made a promise of financial support." "Yes." "You tied it to a personal arrangement." He didn't answer. The judge didn't need him to. The room was already uncomfortable, because now it wasn't just about money. It was about the kind of agreement that existed and whether it could even be recognized as one. The silence lingered longer than usual. No one shifted, no one spoke. because the situation didn't fit cleanly into anything simple. The judge leaned forward slightly, her voice steady, controlled. "Let's separate this clearly," she said. She looked at the woman. "You're asking this court to enforce a financial promise." "Yes." Then she turned to the man. "And you're saying that promise was tied to a personal relationship?" He exhaled slowly. "Yes." The judge nodded once. "That's where your problem begins." The man frowned slightly. "How?" he asked. The judge didn't raise her voice. "Because agreements based on personal access are not enforceable contracts," she said. The words landed firmly. The woman's expression shifted slightly. Not confusion, but something more complicated. The judge continued, "You cannot structure financial support around conditions that involve personal control, companionship, or access." She paused. "That is not a legal agreement. That is an arrangement the court will not enforce." The room stayed still. The discomfort didn't disappear, but it became clearer, defined. The woman looked at the judge. "So I get nothing?" she asked. The judge shook her head slightly. "That depends," she said. She turned back to the man. "Did you provide any payments?" "Yes." "For how long?" "About 4 months." The judge nodded. "And then you stopped when the relationship ended?" "Yes." The judge leaned back. "Those payments were made voluntarily," she said. "There is no enforceable obligation to continue them." The woman's grip tightened on her folder. "But he promised," she said. The judge met her gaze directly. "I understand that," she replied. "But not all promises are legally binding." That line settled heavily, because it didn't deny what happened. It just defined what could be done about it. The judge continued, "This court does not validate agreements that rely on personal dependency or conditional relationships of that nature." She paused. "It puts both parties in a position that cannot be regulated fairly." The man looked down, not relieved, just quiet. The judge shifted her attention again. "You entered into an arrangement," she said to both of them, "but it was not structured in a way the law can recognize or enforce." The room remained silent. Then she delivered the outcome. "This claim is dismissed." The gavel came down, soft, final. The woman didn't move right away. The man didn't either, because this wasn't a case where one side clearly won or lost. It was something else, a situation that had crossed a line between personal and financial and ended in a place where neither could be separated cleanly enough for the court to act. After a moment, the woman stood up. Slowly, the man followed. They didn't look at each other, not yet. Because what had just been said in that room wasn't just a decision, it was a definition of something that shouldn't have been structured the way it was in the first place. They stepped out into the hallway without speaking. The noise outside the courtroom felt louder than usual, like the quiet inside had amplified everything once the doors opened. The woman stopped near the wall, holding her folder tightly against her chest. The man paused a few steps behind her. For a moment, neither turned. Then she spoke. "You knew what you were doing," she said. Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried something heavier than anger. The man exhaled slowly. "I helped you," he replied. She turned toward him. "You controlled it," she said. The distinction landed immediately. He didn't argue, because there wasn't a clean way to. "I didn't force anything," he said. "No," she replied. "You just made sure I needed it." That line stayed in the air. Not dramatic, not loud, just accurate enough to be uncomfortable. He looked down briefly, then back at her. "You agreed to it," he said. She nodded. "I did." Another pause. "But that doesn't make it right." He didn't respond, because that part wasn't something he could correct. A few people walked past them, but neither moved. "You stopped when I stopped," she added. "Yes. So it was never about helping." He hesitated, then said nothing, and that silence answered more than anything else could. She adjusted her grip on the folder again, then lowered it slightly. "I needed support," she said, "not conditions." The words were simple, but they carried everything the case had been about. He nodded faintly. "I see that now," he said. She looked at him for a second. "You didn't before." "No." That honesty landed differently, because it wasn't defensive. It was late, but real. Another pause. Then she exhaled slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "I'm not getting anything from this," she said. "No. And you're walking away clean." He shook his head slightly. "Not really." She looked at him. He held her gaze this time. "I know what it was," he said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight, because now he wasn't trying to rename it or soften it. He was just acknowledging it. She studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Not approval, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. After a few seconds, she stepped past him. "Don't do that to someone else," she said. He didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "I won't." She didn't turn back. She kept walking down the hallway, her pace steady, her posture no longer tense, but not relaxed either, just resolved. He stayed where he was for a moment longer, then leaned back against the wall briefly, not in defeat, but in reflection, because the case hadn't ended with a win or a loss. It ended with something harder to ignore, the moment both of them saw the situation clearly for what it had been all along. And sometimes that's the part that stays with you long after the courtroom is empty. He stayed there a few seconds longer after she disappeared down the hallway. The noise around him faded into the background again, not because it was quiet, but because his focus had shifted inward. He pushed himself off the wall slowly and walked toward the exit. Each step felt measured, not rushed, not hesitant, just deliberate. Outside, the late afternoon light hit differently than when he had walked in. Nothing had changed out there, but something had changed in him. He stopped at the top of the courthouse steps and looked out across the street. Cars moved, people talked, normal, unaware. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, then paused. For a moment, it looked like he was about to call someone. Then he stopped, lowered the phone, because there wasn't anyone to explain this to in a simple way, not without leaving parts out. And now he understood what those parts were. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, then sat down on the steps. Just for a minute, hands resting loosely in front of him, looking ahead, not thinking about the case in pieces anymore, but as a whole. What he said, what she said, what the judge said, and more importantly, what wasn't argued, what wasn't defended, what just stood there once everything was laid out. He exhaled slowly, not heavy, not relieved, just aware, because this wasn't something he could walk away from and forget. Not like a normal dispute. It didn't end with a payment or a dismissal. It ended with a realization he hadn't fully seen before. After a minute, he stood up again, adjusted his sleeves, not out of habit this time, but to settle himself. Then he walked down the steps and into the street. No rush, no distraction, just forward. Inside, the courtroom doors opened again. Another case, another set of people walking in with their version of the truth. But outside, this one didn't stay behind. Because sometimes the outcome isn't written in the judgment. It's written in the moment after, when there's no one left to argue with and nothing left to hide behind, except the truth as it actually was.